Hey folks, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing game supplements, I illustrate them, and I publish them online. I've been focusing my attention on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition for the past few years, and there's a slew of links in the description down below to other work that I've created already you can check out if you want. But for the past year, we've been working on Spelljammer Combat Exploration. It's a supplement that helps add all the little missing combat and exploration mechanics that are useful for running Spelljammer campaigns using the 5th edition version, Spelljammer Adventures in Space. So I got into an interesting conversation recently on Reddit as well as on Discord about how gravity planes and gravity works in general. And so there's two types of gravity. There's spherical gravity, which is what you're used to surrounding a planet. It pulls you to the planet. And then there is planar gravity, or gravity fields, that are two-dimensional planes that cut through the longest dimension of an object. And so the way that you differentiate, the way that we have set up differentiating between when you have a spherical plane of gravity versus a gravity plane is the size of the object in question. So generally, although there can always be exceptions and DMs can make any rules that they want, this is a really easy basic rule that you can riff off any way that you want. But if an object is at least 10 miles in size or larger, it's going to act like a planet and it's going to have spherical gravity. Spherical gravity, when you enter the space of an object like a planet large enough to have spherical gravity, and like in this example here, this planet A occupies a 1,000 mile square space. So if you're not in this square with the planet, you're not going to be affected by its gravity. But as soon as, if you're just like drifting through space or you intentionally fly towards it, once you enter the sphere, once you enter its sphere of influence or its gravity, its spherical gravity inside that space that it occupies, then you're going to be afflicted with falling. And generically, according to Wizards of the Coast, I think it's DMG as well as Player's Handbook, basically you can fall up to 500 feet per round. If you're in a spelljamming ship that can fly 100 million miles per day, you can actually fly on purpose 10,000 miles per round instead of just free falling 500 feet per round. So obviously you can fly at incredible speeds using Spelljammer ships. So that's how spherical gravity is. If it's more than 10 miles in size, it's going to pull you to the planet. But if it's smaller than 10 miles, it's going to be a gravity field or a gravity plane, which is a two-dimensional surface. If you think about a ring that surrounds a planet, it's just basically like a scatter of rocks that's all aligned in the same plane or field that surrounds the planet. Why is that? None of these rocks are larger than 10 miles in size. If they were, they'd be a moon, for instance. Like maybe this guy is a moon that's maybe 200,000 miles away instead of like 1,100 miles away. So it would have its own planar gravity as well, because it's larger than 10 miles in size, because you can see it and it's emitting light. So this gravity, this ring world, though, this ring that surrounds the planet, it would be built from multiple rocks and other things that are smaller than 10 miles in size. So in this illustration that we created in stream in the mornings last week or two, I'll have a link to the creation of this illustration in the link down below for you to check out if you're interested. But this ring world, is a number of. It's just like any other ring that you would see, like Jupiter or Saturn, whatever. Is it Uranus? Uranus has a ring, and Saturn has multiple rings. So, but those are all made out of these little debris of rock. And over time, because it's Spelljammer, it's fantasy wild space, and life grows everywhere in fantasy worlds, this cluster of rocks eventually has ice that melts and forms little globs of water. And the way that Spelljammer works as presented by Wizards of the Coast is when two objects touch, they just naturally align their gravity planes together so that the plane becomes bigger, thus becomes a field over time. So what happens is this debris field of rock and stuff, it just naturally starts to teem with life. And as the rocks continue to grow and plants grow, the roots grow together and moss seals them all together. And given enough time, they may actually fuse together to become an object that is large enough to support its own spherical gravity. But for now, it's trapped in orbit around the planet. It can't really leave orbit of the planet, but if this material gets too close to the planet, it pulls out of the ring and then falls to the surface because of spherical gravity. So this space that this ring occupies is technically larger than the planet, but it surrounds it in a gravity plane. And so it maintains that ring shape, because anytime any debris floats off of the ring and gets too close to the planet, it just falls to the surface and disappears. So the ring may be eroding over time to slowly shrink in size as it gets pulled towards the planet, or it could be drifting apart and slowly just leaves orbit and just becomes free-floating asteroids that float through space. But for the meantime, in this moment and for the next X thousands of years, it's a great place to build a community. So you can have, this is a great staging ground for maybe the inhabitants on the surface of the planet evolved and got into spell jamming. So then they started to populate their ring world as a place to use as an easy launch point to get out into wild space and into the astral sea. Or conversely, it could be that prospectors from another world found something valuable on this world, but the world is too hostile for you to actually live there. So they find this ring, they start setting up communities, and they use the ring world as a staging ground to then drop to the surface to harvest whatever material it is or fight whatever monsters are down there and get the hell out before they get stuck there or get killed or whatever nasty condition the DM imagines is preventing them from wanting to stay down there. Like this could be a poisonous gas planet that the metals at the core of the planet are surrounded by 200-foot flying worm things that can't leave the atmosphere because they can't breathe outside of its space, but staying in there is suicidal for anything small enough to be eaten, and none of the ships are big enough to avoid that tragedy. So they just use small ships to get in, grab whatever they need, and get out, and then they go back up to the ring world to drop off their load, get a drink, get paid, hang out with their friends. Now there's a whole community growing here. Now we're looking at like 3rd and 4th generation gas miners that are going down to the surface of the planet, gathering up resources, and then sending them off to other worlds someplace else in the multiverse. These are a couple different ways you can play with interacting with spherical planar gravity, planet gravity versus the gravity fields that can surround them. These are exploration ideas you can play with. On the combat front, so as we said, when two objects touch, their gravity planes naturally align. So there's 2 types of ships that we have in this campaign, in the supplement. Vessels, which are larger than 50 feet, the ships that you expect to see in Spelljammer's Adventures in Space. And then there's ships that are smaller than 50 feet in size, fighter craft. Like a TIE fighter is 35 feet wide. An X-Wing is 40 feet long. The Vipers from Battlestar Galactica, or any number of the Wraiths from Stargate. These are all examples of fighter craft. So we created a number of fighter craft to complement the vessels, like a Night Spider vessel that would be controlled by Neogi is about 200 feet long, so it occupies a 4x4 space using 50-foot squares. It's 200 feet in size. And this fighter craft, this little Spiderling fighter craft, is about 40 feet in size. And this galleon that both of these ships are pursuing, a space galleon, is about 130 feet in length. So all of these ships have a gravity plane because they're certainly not 10 miles in size. So a fun thing you can do there's 2 fun things you can do with aligning your gravity planes during combat. If your ship is small enough to occupy the space of your target, like this Spiderling fighter craft is small enough to occupy the space of this 130-foot space galleon, if I can hit you with a melee attack or I can use an action to align my gravity plane with yours, since I can sit inside of your space, you're effectively towing or carrying me. We call it pacing. When you're sitting, when your movement is automatically tracking the movement of another ship, typically while you're inside the gravity plane, like a fighter ship like this, that's called pacing. So you're aligning for combat, you're aligning your plane so that you can sit inside that space and just continue to attack the team, while the pilot of the space galleon would have to take actions to try to shake those fighter ships out of its gravity plane so it could potentially escape from them. Otherwise, it's pretty much locked down. It's going to have to deal with those fighter ships one way or another. It's probably going to need combat. Maybe they're going to try to board your ship. You can repel them that way. Maybe you have enough siege weapons here to be able to fight against the fighters being there and to make them retreat or escape or be destroyed. Other thing that you can do is called scuttling. So when you ram when you hit a ship, or like when a hammerhead ship has a blunt ram, a bludgeoning ram. When a bludgeoning ram attack hits, you can use a bonus action to immediately scuttle a ship, or in normal combat, like say the Spiderling uses its piercing spear legs to start doing melee attacks if it stays up with the galleon. If it starts to shred the galleon with its spearing, it could use a bonus action during those attacks to scuttle the ship. Scuttling is when you force a ship to align its gravity plane with you as a violent action. The ram or the melee attack that hits the ship is going to damage the ship. But scuttling itself doesn't damage the ship. But what it does is it forces the gravity plane of that ship to violently lurch and align. Like if I were to hit you like this, and I scuttle your ship and force you to align with my gravity plane through the act of ramming, it's going to cause that ship to flip onto its side. Or like if I come at you this way and I hit you, it's going to cause the ship to flip this way, so you can force the ship to have, it's basically like tripping a ship is basically what it does. And anyone that's on board the ship that gets scuttled is going to take falling damage, and the amount of falling damage that they take is D6 for every 50 feet of space that the ship occupies. So if this Night Spider ship were to scuttle this galleon, it would force everyone on board the ship to take 3d6 falling damage. If you use a reaction, you can brace for impact and take no damage. If you don't brace, if you've already spent your reaction another way, you then have to make a saving throw and take half damage from falling. But it's falling damage, so the pilot could potentially fall out of the seat, or the damage that the pilot takes could disrupt the concentration. And when their concentration is down, they can't pilot the ship. It's now defenseless. So if this Night Spider were to able to stab the ship and hit it and scuttle it and knock the pilot out of its helm, then until another player takes control, or another creature takes control of that helm and begins piloting the ship, then it's basically, it has no defenses. It is defenseless. It can get boarded. It can get attacked and shredded. But that's still using the same idea of objects aligning with each other. You're either tapping the target so you can sit and ride inside of its gravity plane with you, so you can continue to attack it without having to exert any energy yourself, so you can dedicate all actions instead of moving and maneuvering and dashing or dodging, disengaging, or pacing or scuttling. You can just sit inside that gravity plane with your target and just focus fire on it until you take it down. Or if you're in a large vessel of comparable size that can't just ride along inside the plane with it, you can scuttle it, knock it asunder, trip it, disrupt the team, get that ship so that it's defenseless, so you can go and you can grip attack, board it, whatever it is that you want to do with it. So, but that all routes from the alignment, just the casual statement of aligning your gravity planes that Wizards of the Coast basically said in a sentence. It's like, yeah, gravity planes align when you touch. There you go. So these are the mechanics that we're able to extract out of that. So when this book is done, we're going to publish it on the DMsGuild. It's 106 pages. There's about 80 pages worth of mechanics like these ideas we've been talking about. And the last 25 pages of it is actually a conversion guide for the Light of Xeraxis adventure. Light of Xeraxis is the showcase adventure that comes with Spelljammer Adventures in Space that Wizards published to showcase how spelljamming can be played as an adventure. So we take all the rules from this book and we then include them and change how Light of Xeraxis can be played utilizing these mechanics. So if you didn't think that 5th edition Spelljammer was quite scratching your itch because it was mechanically thin, it didn't provide all those kind of technical answers that you wanted, hopefully when this publishes, we'll have a link for you down below. It'll have an extensive preview so you can check it out. Just like all the other books I have down below. If you think this stuff is cool, it's going to include all the maps that you need to play Light of Xeraxis. It's going to have all the NPC and creature tokens from Light of Xeraxis. It's going to have all the ships in Spelljammer, as well as all the fighter craft that we created. They're all at the 500 foot scale, 50 foot scale, and 5 foot scale. The ships are broken up into 10 by 10, 5 foot, like 50 foot spaces, 10 by 10 grids at the 5 foot scale. So if you're playing at your table and you have a hammerhead ship that's going to be 25 inches worth of ship that you have to lay down, it's 250 feet divided by 5. Sorry, that's 50 inches that you would have to lay on your table. If you don't want to screw around with all that, we're just going to give you little 10 by 10 blocks of the ship deck that you can just use. We're just at the back half of the ship, so we only need a 10 by 10 and another 10 by 10 next to each other. So we only need 20 inches of space for us to have combat on our hammerhead ship. And then if we want to see the whole ship, you can just scale out to the 50-foot scale like we were showing you here, so that you can have combat at this 50-foot scale. Here's instance of ships flying around through asteroids in pursuit of each other. Or here's how you can navigate through asteroid fields if you dump down a bunch of rocks from your garden as asteroids, or if you buy some of my asteroid tokens, and we'll also include some with this book. If you want to buy it, it'll be in a zip file. All this stuff will be there for you. So if you think this stuff is cool, check the book out. If it adds anything to you, whether talking about how to explore and how to frame and build worlds, you can check out other videos that I have in my playlist down below to look at other mechanics that we've introduced and built for this book that helps make the spelljamming experience easier to understand. And again, we want to build simple rules that can be built out to make rulings. So if you have consistent rules that are easy to use, that the DM can play with and manipulate and change, when something comes up in the game, it's like, how would that work? If there's rules there that give you a general guideline of how that stuff is supposed to work, you can then establish for your own campaign, I like that, we're going to use that, or I like that, but I'm going to riff off of it and do this instead. But you can create that consistency, and hopefully this book is going to provide you with a lot of logical answers and systems to be in place to be able to make those rulings, so you can have more fun with this game, or even Starfinder, or Lancer in space, or any other system that you might be thinking about playing that rolls a d20. This will probably be able to add to your experience. So check this stuff out. I paint the book on Monday through Friday in the morning. When it's done, we'll publish on DMsGuild, like I said. You can check it out. So if you want to find out more, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, tag along, ask questions, drop comments down below. If you saw this on Reddit, be welcome to ask me anything there. Hit me on Discord if you want, or I'm on Twitter at Phil Kearney. So hope to see you guys out there, and have a great day.